What's up, Canes fans? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Special edition. It is Saturday morning, and Miami has put the finishing touch on its portal class. A nice bow on top of it. Very, very important one. That is Xavier Lucas, cornerback from Wisconsin, originally from Broward County. Someone in Miami recruited extremely hard out of high school, ended up going to Wisconsin, having an unbelievable freshman year, highest graded player on Wisconsin's defense. Now a Miami Hurricane after a long, public, ugly saga in which Wisconsin embarrassed themselves, acting like a jilted lover. I don't blame them. They lost a great, great player. They're right to be upset. Miami fans are right to be ecstatic because Xavier Lucas is a Hurricane. We will talk about all that, kind of the legal stuff that went into this and everything else. And more importantly, the impact on this 2025 defense and a secondary that has been totally overhauled and has been injected with a ton of youth, length, and speed. First, I want to talk about some folks that don't need any overhaul. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
Morning, D. Great morning.
Oh, feeling great. What do you got? You got like a soccer game or something, right? You're like in halftime in one of these soccer games?
Yeah, Newcastle, man. Newcastle down 2-1. Against Bournemouth at St. James's Park. Not a good morning so far, man, but a great morning. You see us both with our Canes Connection hats. I got this new podcast set up at home, so I got a better camera. You can see the sweat marks on here. That's because Canes Connection is grinding. Everyone over there doing a great job.
Yeah, sweating over this Xavier Lucas ordeal. We'll talk about Canes Connection in a bit, but obviously they made this all possible. It's Miami's official NIL collective, www.canesconnection.com/CIS. If you want to be part of this overhaul, and I'll drop the link right here in the chat, but this is, no secret what's happening here. Miami had a quarterback issue. We saw that in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We talked about it nonstop that, I thought this was going to end with a portal quarterback just because it had to. I just thought we needed that. End up with Carson Beck, number 1 overall rated player in the portal. Miami wanted a center to bridge between Zach Carpenter and S.J. Alfatuli. You get James Brockermeyer. Miami needs a tight end to replace what they lost. Get Alex Bauman from Tulane, one of the highest rated pass catching tight ends in the portal. Need a sure-handed receiver, big guy to replace Isaiah Horton. You go and get C.J. Daniels. That's just on offense. But then on defense, the needs were more profound. Defensive tackle, you get David Blay, number 2 rated defensive tackle in the portal from Louisiana Tech. You beat Penn State. Then really, where the action was, the secondary. We all know. We saw the Syracuse game. We saw the whole season. Miami's secondary was the biggest weakness on the team. Probably cost this team a conference championship, a playoff appearance, and who knows what else could have happened with the way this offense was rolling, the number 1 offense in the country, and a significantly better quarterback than what we're going to watch here in the championship game. Better offensive line, too, I might add. At least comparable offensive line to those two teams, which are the 2 best. So, the secondary, what do we do? First, you added Charles Brantley, your athletic but undersized veteran guy who's played in the Big Ten, had success in the Big Ten, made plays in the Big Ten, feisty. Maybe not your prototypical size or weight at least, but somebody with tremendous click and close, quickness, and ball skills, just a playmaker. But beyond him, it has been prototype after prototype after prototype until you land with the top prototype here in Xavier Lucas. Zechariah Poyser, number 2 safety in the portal from Jacksonville State. You add him over LSU, Georgia, Florida. Emmanuel Carnley, 6'3", speedy, redshirt freshman corner. By the way, redshirt freshman Zechariah Poyser, freshman All-America. Redshirt freshman Emmanuel Carnley from Arizona, 6'3", speedy, former wide receiver. A lot of people thought in the scouting community thought he was better than Takario Davis, who is an NFL candidate on the other side. You get him over Ole Miss and Michigan. Ethan O'Connor, you beat out Georgia for him. Another long, athletic, 4 interceptions as a redshirt freshman from Washington State. You beat Georgia for him. 4-star corner in the portal. You get him. And now the ultimate prototype, which we've been building towards, Xavier Lucas, 6'2", 200 pounds, 10.49 speed in the 100 verified, which if you're translating that to 40, you're talking about 4.3 speed at 6'2", 200 pounds. Second highest graded player in Wisconsin's defense as a true freshman. He can play corner. Some things people think he might be safety. That's been a debate really since he's been in high school. Played corner for Wisconsin, was the second highest grade player there. High school teammate of freshman All-America OJ Frederic. He just missed the freshman All-America team. Lucas did. So you're talking about borderline freshman All-America, a freshman All-America in OJ Frederic, a freshman All-America Zechariah Poyser, two highly, highly recruited redshirt freshmen out of the portal in Ethan O'Connor and Emmanuel Carnley, and a proven veteran in Charles Brantley, a highly graded player from the Big Ten and Michigan State. This secondary has been completely overhauled, and Xavier Lucas is the freakiest out of all the players you landed.
Couple things I wanted to get to, D. We're getting a lot of questions about who's going to be coaching these guys, which obviously still is going to be determined here. But in terms of the portal and what this decision means for the portal, because essentially, as Lucas was represented by Darren Heitner, and as we said in the beginning, a guy that I've dealt with and as good as anybody in the NIL space and NCAA related stuff, because this is like, people got to realize the NCAA rule set is not like any set of rules, right? It's not like a lot of this stuff isn't actually bound by law, which is what is kind of like we're seeing here with this decision. And essentially what they're saying is like, the portal is almost like a figment of everyone's imagination in a sense, because what happened here, just so people understand, is Xavier Lucas left Wisconsin as the school. They said you can't enter the portal, which obviously you can't prevent someone from doing, as we see here. And the NCAA rules don't prevent someone from enrolling at a school. Now, is he going to be classified as a walk-on here? Yeah, that's kind of what my understanding would be. But can you kind of walk us through what this whole thing means for the portal moving forward?
Yeah, so to start off, before we get to the bigger picture here, Wisconsin broke the rules. All right, Wisconsin broke the rules because they were upset that a player they had that they thought was going to develop into a first-round pick for them decided he would rather be with the Miami Hurricanes and wanted to leave Wisconsin. That's what happened here. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. The rules are clear that when Xavier Lucas says, I want to enter the portal, which he did during the time allotted to do it, he wasn't late. He was right on time and said, I want to go. Wisconsin has 48 hours to enter his name in the portal. They chose to break that rule and not enter his name in the portal. Miami, Lucas, that was the match, but really this was Lucas driven. Lucas hired the attorney. Lucas is the one that worked with the NCAA. Lucas is the one that told Wisconsin, you got to enter my name. You're breaking the rules. What are we doing here? And I think what ultimately happened is the NCAA, and we'll get into their kind of bigger picture issues, ultimately said, we wash our hands of this. We're not going to, if Xavier Lucas wants to go to Miami, we're not going to stop him. You guys handle it. We're not going to get involved. Xavier Lucas unenrolled from Wisconsin, enrolled at Miami, and NCAA basically, there's nothing we can do about it. It's fine. Pull up the Kevin Clark tweet, because that really summed up the situation. But ultimately, the main thing the NCAA did is they said, we're not going to enforce anything against Lucas like as if he didn't enter the portal. So Lucas is going to be a Miami Hurricane wearing orange and green playing with no NCAA issues. So when that happened, he just left Wisconsin, went to Miami, and no one stopped him, right? It was like an imaginary wall, imaginary fence. He just walked right through, and it was no problem. I think this all starts with Wisconsin not respecting the process and procedure that's there in the portal for everybody's interest, which is the school. You tell the school has 48 hours. They try to convince you not to go in those 48 hours, but ultimately, if they can't, they put your name in. That's the process that makes this somewhat orderly. Obviously, it's kind of the Wild West, but that brings some order to it. Wisconsin chose not to do it. That's fine. They got a lot of bad press. They look terrible in South Florida, and the kid's going to play for the Miami Hurricanes. They have a huge hole in their secondary now at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell looking like an idiot. So there you go right here. Here's the tweet from our friend Kevin Clark. Said it better than anybody. Wisconsin said a kid couldn't go in the portal. The kid and his lawyer said the portal doesn't exist, and the NCAA said, you got us there. That's pretty much what happened here. So bigger picture. I've had texts from people saying, like, I don't like all this player movement. The portal's so unregulated. And look, I get it. I think this is unsustainable. But the problem is the NCAA shouldn't be in this picture. What you've seen for the last 5 years is the NCAA versus the law. And the law is winning every time. NCAA is breaking antitrust law with everything they do. And every time it gets tested in court, the courts say, you're wrong, you lose. And then you see new rules kind of develop or alter in the NCAA. So in the right world, you have the players who are making all the money, or earning all the money, I should say, creating all the money. The schools, which are benefiting, they come together, they figure out how the pie is going to be divided, and then they make the rules that govern everybody. That's how it should work. That's how it works in the NFL. That's how it works in Major League Baseball. That's how it works in NBA. In this case, that's not happening. You have the NCAA running an illegal cartel. We know all about it. I don't have to rehash, making all this money off the players and these giant TV deals. Players getting nothing at the time, getting paid 40 G's under the table to go to the SEC, and the NCAA selectively enforcing. We've gone over this a million times. And that was the system. But then when the lawsuits started coming, NCAA lost every single time because everything they're doing is illegal. So this is just another example of the NCAA having no power. And if we want to stop players from leaving schools after 1 year, after a day, in some cases, which I get because it's not good for the fans, the players and the NCAA need to come together and make the rules and agree on the rules. It can't be done through court cases piecemeal. And if it is done like that, it's going to be the same result. NCAA is going to lose every single time, and you're going to really have no rules. And the fans could lose interest, although it hasn't happened yet. This was a great college football season, but the fans could lose interest over time with their players leaving every 2 seconds with 1 year deals. So ultimately, as far as legal, there was no lawsuit filed here. There was no injunction filed. It really never met the courts at all. Maybe there's some litigation about the revenue sharing contract that Lucas signed with Wisconsin, but he never got any money from it, from what I understand. So ultimately, the lawyer stuff's just all back and forth. What this is about is the NCAA having no power because the NCAA is operating an illegal entity. And when you're operating a legal entity, you don't want to take it to court because you lose. And that's really what this is all about.
And again, just to kind of simplify it for people, in this situation, D, what we're looking at is if a normal student wanted to withdraw from a school and enroll in another school, there's nothing that's stopping the previous school from saying you can't enroll at that school. So that's essentially what's happening here.
Yeah, and then obviously he wants to play college athletics. So
right. Which is what makes it a different situation than a normal student, obviously. But the
NCAA is saying they're not going to do anything. So it ends up being exactly what you said, Pete, which is a normal student just saying, I'm homesick, which happens all the time. In this case, and Tyler Overly's pointing it out, his dad's health's not great, and he wanted to leave for that reason. So, this is what it is. And again, I've seen comments, people saying, we need rules in this, or else it's Wild Wild West. I get it. But you got to make the rules together. The NFL rules, the NBA rules, the MLB rules, they are negotiated together. Both parties are involved. It's not NCAA saying, hey, here are the rules. By the way, we're only going to force them for the other conferences. SEC can break the rules, but we won't get into that. And then the players, you have no say and you have no money. I mean, that's how it's been for so long. And that's not how any of these athletic leagues that generate billions of dollars in revenue work. You got to come together and make the rules. And right now, the NCAA is just trying to stretch out this illegal process, which loses in court every time. And then their only Hail Mary now, and everybody should be aware of this because you're going to see it play out, is they want to go to Congress and they want to say, Congress, give us an exemption from antitrust law so we don't keep getting sued and losing, and we could just operate this illegal entity however we want. Now, Tommy Tuberville's in Congress. There's more political uniformity, you would say, in Congress and the executive branch right now. So if they're going to get it done, it would get done now. But I think more people hear about this. NCAA is a very unpopular entity, and they're illegal, and they're really just bad people. I've dealt with them. They're not very smart. So ultimately, I think this ends with NCAA crumbling, private enterprise taking over. We're still working with the schools. So it's still college football as far as, everything on the outside, but the players and the schools come together on the rules together.
D, getting to
let's get the football.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get to the football aspect of this. Gotta wrap this up in a few, but as Vaughn comments here, Lucas and OJ start, who's the nickel? That's a hypothetical from him, but I would think with this influx of talent, there might be some moving around, maybe some guys trying their hand at safety, Damari Brown potentially. He has the body type. So, I mean, where do you see things kind of shaking out here in terms of that defensive back room now?
I think this is going to be a process. You have a new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, and he's very clear what he says. He goes, listen, I am here to figure out what everybody does and go from there. I want to know what everybody does well, what they can't do, where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and then put the team together from there. That's what spring is about. So finding out what all these cornerbacks and DBs do. So looking at his snap counts at Wisconsin, 168, which is the overwhelming majority, were at cornerback for Xavier Lucas. He did have one snap at DL, which is really just blitzing, 19 in the box, and 15 over the slot. Since high school, the question with Lucas has been, is he going to be a corner or a safety? He's 200 pounds. He's physical. He likes to tackle. You look at his tackling grade, 76.8. So a really good tackling grade as a freshman from PFF. And he's big. I mean, he's 6'2", 200. So he could play safety. He has 10.5 speed, so he could certainly play corner from a speed standpoint. If you want a big nickel, he could be your big nickel as well. You had some snaps at that position last year, Wisconsin. So Lucas could also move around. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that you have Lucas and Frederic lining up on the outside, although both those guys, high school teammates at Deerfield, they ended up transferring to different schools their senior year. Frederic goes to St. Thomas. Lucas goes to Heritage. So they reunite, but they don't have to necessarily be the corners on the outside. Brantley's been mostly a corner. He's the veteran, though. You can see him moving around. He's the smallest of them all, too. So if you want a smaller nickel and you want big athletic guys outside, maybe move Brantley inside. Damari Brown is someone I think is best as in the slot as a big nickel or as a safety. In fact, I think Damari Brown ultimately, I don't know if he wants to do it. I don't know if he doesn't or doesn't. This is not like info. This is just me. I don't know if he wants to play safety. I think he should play safety. He's big. He's extremely strong and physical. Great tackler. He has speed. He has coverage ability, so he has versatility. But, I think maybe he's tighter than some of these other guys, and maybe doesn't have their pure speed of a Lucas to make up for some of the tightness. Lucas and Damari are pretty similar as far as their size and strength. But I would say, Lucas is a 10-500 guy. I don't know if Brown is that. So that gives him a little more leeway to survive outside. Carnley's a pure corner, 6'3", but he's a corner. Ethan O'Connor also 6'1", plus he's a corner. Frederic's a corner. We'll see how it all shakes out, but we'll see if any of these guys play nickel, any of them play safety. I would try to get my best defensive backs on the field no matter what. You have a lot of them. They all got to play. They're all getting paid a lot. CanesConnection.com/CIS if you want to be part of this. Join Miami's official and collective. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a good problem to have, much better than we had before when Markeith Williams was playing corner in the bowl game.
Yeah, TY says he reminds him of Tyreek Stevenson, Xavier Lucas. I think Tyreek was a little bit thicker.
No, Pete, you know what though? Maybe a little, but man, Lucas is thick, man. Lucas is 200.
I mean, I'm looking at it now. He's a big boy, but just in the pictures that I see, he looks a little bit leaner. Not that it's a bad thing, right? I think when we were going through the process with Tyreek, because he's a first round management client, like there was people saying, because he's obviously a starting corner now, but there were people wondering if he would kind of outgrow corner in a sense because of the way that he was shaped. And obviously that hasn't happened. Tyreek, he had that bad moment earlier this year with that Hail Mary, but his rookie year, he was almost defensive rookie of the year, multiple defensive player of the week there for the Bears. So like it's working for him at corner. But yeah, that's not a terrible comparison.
No, yeah. So Tyreek, man, you talk about guys that really prove themselves. Tyreek, everybody thought he was always going to move off a corner. He stuck with it and said, no, listen, I'm a corner. And he ended up as a corner, right, in the NFL. So starting corner who made some plays. So he's proven that he can do that. We'll see who – I'm sure all these guys view themselves as corners, so we'll see who fits best in terms of this particular defense. But I think you'd like to get a safety and a nickel out of this group. So you just have all your best defenders on the field at once. But Lucas, Reek, I'm looking at his listing right now. Pete, I think he's 204. They're listing him. I know
I know what they're listed at. I know what they're listed. I've seen Tyreek up close, and he's little more squarish, not in a bad way. Again, I mean, for Lucas, I think he's a little bit longer almost than Tyreek. I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying, I mean, I haven't sized up Lucas up close, but just in the pictures I've seen, that's what I'm getting. I think he's taller than Tyreek too.
He is. No, but I've seen him, and I think when Tyreek is getting heavy, like when he was playing more like he was at Georgia, he's big. I appreciate you, Andre. He's big, but I mean, I would put them in the same category just from seeing them up close. You're right. Maybe Lucas is a little taller, but Lucas
I think he's taller and leaner. But again, we're splitting hairs here.
Yeah. The point is that these guys are big, athletic corners. I think we're getting back to in 2022. You had Tyreek Stevenson and DJ Ivey, both of whom now play in the NFL, play defense in the NFL. DJ is kind of like your dime. He plays against tight ends in there on that Bengals defense, had a pretty good second season coming off an ACL, and then Tyreek starting corner. I would go to Green Tree and it looked a certain way. Didn't perform always that way. There was a lot of issues on defense communication wise, but those guys, NFL corner, they looked the part. That's what you want when you're going against a Syracuse, when you go against Iowa State's big receivers. You got to match up. Now we're back to that, but with more depth. So let's say you have a situation where like 2022, like Ivy, was up and down, or even Stevenson had his moments. You could keep pressure on all those guys because you don't just have Lucas and a Frederic. Right behind them, you have an O'Connor, a Carnley. Brantley's in that mix. Damari Brown's in that mix. So the pressure and the competition is going to be huge at this position. And I think in spring, you're going to see intense competition between these young corners. And these are young guys. You think about these guys being transfer portals. Charles Brantley's a veteran, but Lucas, true freshman last year. Frederic, true freshman last year. Damari Brown, second-year player last year. Carnley, second-year player last year, redshirt freshman. Ethan O'Connor, redshirt freshman last year. Poyser, the safety, redshirt freshman last year, freshman All-America. So these are young, long, athletic guys. And when we talk about prototypes, freaks, this guy, Lucas, is probably the freakiest corner from a physical standpoint since Artie Burns, maybe. I think you have to go back to Artie Burns, who was a first-round pick, to have a combination of length, size, and speed like what Lucas brings to the table. And Lucas, honestly, I know Artie Burns was a track star. Artie Burns was elite at the hurdles, but Artie Burns never ran a 10.4 at 900 like this guy does. And I think this guy's about 10 pounds heavier than Artie Burns.
D, we had a question here from Long Live Frenchie asking when we put the podcast out. It'll be up here in the next 15, 20 minutes when we get off. And I got to wrap it up here, D. If you want to stay on, you can, but I got to hop off here in a second.
I know you got I know you have deep ties.
It's already second half, man. It's already
I know you have deep family ties. All right. Make sure you put this on audio before when the game's done. I'll take over from here.
I'll do it now, but I'll do it as soon as you're done.
All right.
But I'm going to hop off here.
Watch your match. You're like Zoolander. Go watch your match. All right, everybody. So we got some questions here. Coach Jenko said, Mario at my school in Boynton Beach yesterday saw him get out there with the State Trooper Patrol SUV. Bet he likes my Canes posters in my windows. There we go, Coach representing. Was that Boynton Beach High? Do you guys got any players there? Let me know. Boynton Beach. If it is Boynton Beach High, obviously the best player potentially in the NFL, along with Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. He is a Boynton Beach grad. So if the next guy that comes out of there looks like that, we got to get him in the Miami Hurricanes. We can't lose guys like that anymore. Yusef saying, now I see why Drake Stubbs went to Florida. He saw this coming. Well, Drake Stubbs is the highly rated safety that went to Florida. I mean, look, we want to keep Drake Stubbs. I do think with Drake Stubbs, the weakness is a little stiff, more limited, just kind of a run defending kind of safety as opposed to somebody with a little more versatility. These guys are all corners, and we're trying to see if maybe one of these corners can also play safety. So if you do get your safety out of this group and your nickel out of this group, now you got a lot of versatility, a lot of length, a lot of options to match up, because you're not just playing, one cover guy, one stiff guy. You got a lot of guys that can cover. And Zechariah Poyser, who will for sure be starting at safety, is more of your athletic safety. He can cover tight ends. He's more of your free safety, 41-inch vertical leap, freshman All-America for Jacksonville State, number 2 safety in the portal, now Miami Hurricane. So, feeling pretty good about all that. Question here, and this is what we'll be talking about a lot in the Canes Inside podcast the next few weeks. Canes cat Heat 305. Now that the roster is set for spring, what are the key battles you're going to be watching? Well, look, pretty easy, right? The one we're talking about right now, defensive back, who fits where, who's the best cover guy, who's the best tackler, who's the best at seeing things happen quickly, maybe like a nickel kind of vision and instincts. Got to see all that. That's number one. I guess that number one on defense. Number one on offense, backup quarterback, right? So you got Luke Nickel, just showed up on campus. You got Emery's been here. Judd Anderson's been here. Carson Beck is here, but he'll be holding a clipboard. He can't throw yet. He'll start throwing right after spring. So who's going to be the quarterback of the future? Who's going to be the backup quarterback of the present? I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same guy. So let's find out. The hope, as you see Steven Posada saying, is Nickel going to be QB1 in spring. I don't think anybody's going to be QB1 in spring. It's going to be who's QB1, by the end of spring, right? Who wins that battle? And then ultimately that person will be QB2 when Beck gets back. But it's going to be who wins that battle. Is Nickel ready to be the backup quarterback in the ACC? I think he probably is. It's 2024. You see good true freshmen are backups all over the country. If Nickel is a good true freshman, which I think he will be, this guy was Georgia Player of the Year, undefeated, set all kinds of records, was throwing the ball all over the place, dominating the playoffs. He's 210 plus pounds, probably heavier than that. He's strong. He's athletic, very accurate, played in a pro style system, played against the highest level of Georgia competition. I think he has readiness in terms of playing right away. We'll see what he can do when he gets here. You don't know till they get here. Emery, we know the story there. He was probably the backup last year. You never really got to see the backup because Cam Ward never got hurt, thankfully. But I think Emery would have been ultimately the backup instead of Reese. Whether that should have been the backup, I don't know. Reese had more athleticism than Emery. That was always my concern with Emery. But he's going to be the guy taking the first snaps. You can pretty much be assured. But is there a long-term future for Emery here at Miami? We'll have to find out. And then Judd, you just don't know, right? This is a guy who was a basketball player, a power forward, a center, not really making a lot of decisions. Then he goes to quarterback. He's an option kind of wing T type quarterback. Then he goes to not option. He didn't really run. He was just a wing T quarterback, so he was handing it off a lot. Then he goes to two schools, so he kind of moves around a little bit, but both pass first schools. So his junior and senior year, he's throwing the ball and shows improvement. Then he's here on campus as your fourth quarterback. At one point, he was your fifth quarterback when Jakari was here. So you never really got to see him get reps with good players, good on good. He was always with the scout team going against the scout team. A lot of walk-ons. Not that they're not good players. They'd route me up pretty good, but you know what I'm talking about. So we haven't seen Judd with the second and first team at length. So that's going to be the battle. My money would be on Luke Nickel. I think Luke Nickel's the best quarterback we signed since the Mario era, but that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the guy we signed, Mario's first full class, Emery. The guy we signed, Mario's second full class, Judd. And now the guy we signed in Mario's third full class, which is Luke. And they're all going to battle, and we're going to see who's the best. And that's the battle to watch. Also, wide receiver, right? You're going to definitely bring in a receiver or two in this spring period now that you have Carson Beck. We got to see what we have, right? We got to see, is it going to be, JoJo Trader taking a step up and being the guy? Is Nye Carr going to elevate with those increased reps? CJ Daniels had surgery on his foot trying to fix something he played through there at LSU. Is he going to play? Probably not, but his role is going to be there. You got a lot of young guys coming in, right? You got Malachi Toney. He's a day one type guy mentally. He's going to be able to make that kind of impact. Josh Moore, big guy. I've heard he's made some incredible plays already at workouts. Dalen Upshaw, somebody who has a very polished game and was extremely productive in Alabama. Stronger player, so he can handle it physically. We'll see how those guys do. You also have Chance Robinson, didn't play a lot, has been injured. You got Ray Joseph. Is he going to try to take over in the slot for Restrepo? So a lot of names in the mix, but we got to see who stands out and who's consistent. I like JoJo. I think Nye Carr is going to make a big step. And of the young guys, I think those guys, all three of them, could make an impact. It's going to come down to injury, who picks it up the most. And then we'll see when they all get together. You'll add somebody after spring, but you want to find out who the best one is right now. I think those are the spring battles I'm watching. Any questions we got going on here before we roll out of here? Let's see. Hassan Shiab says Miami needs a fast receiver now. Definitely a kick returner, also a linebacker. So, in terms of post-spring shopping, I think the spring is going to tell you what you need. I have an idea what we might need, but I think the spring is going to tell you. Hopefully there's no major injuries, but if there are, obviously that changes what your needs a little bit, and you just don't know who's going to perform. Maybe a freshman's performing so well, you're like, man, we wanted to bring someone in here, but do we really want to keep this guy off the field? So these are the kind of, or the opposite, we thought this guy was going to hold it down, and he's kind of, plateaued or gone backwards. You got to figure that out. So I definitely think we need a receiver, a fast wide receiver. Look, everybody wants speed. When I watch Carson Beck, and I went back and watched pretty much all his games there at Georgia last year, he really needs contested catch wide receivers. CJ Daniels is a good one. That's one of his strengths coming from LSU and Liberty. But you need more because he throws a lot of 50-50 balls into single coverage. And Georgia on 50-50 balls was about 20-80. I mean, those guys stunk. If you guys have any questions about Carson Beck's supporting cast, what I'd recommend you do is go to YouTube, write Georgia OL offensive line versus 2024. And you'll see a bunch of videos that people cut up, which is basically, it's for Georgia's offensive line, but it's all of Georgia's offensive plays against their opponents in 2024. Clemson's up, Ole Miss is up, Tennessee's up, Texas is up, Alabama's up. Pretty much all their games are up on YouTube, and it's cut up so you only see offense. And you see the running plays and the passing plays, which is important because then you really see their running game stunk. They were in the hundreds in the country, and you see it when you watch the games. And then receivers, again, we knew the stats that they were the 100th in drops in the nation. They were first in drops in the nation, 100th in running game. But then seeing it, it's not just the drops. They just could not make a play when it was 50-50. And if you had even a Restrepo who's 5'9", would have elevated their offense so much last year. Now, we lose Restrepo ourselves, so who's going to be that for us? That's going to be the question. But to your question, Hassan, yeah, speed's great, but I think we really, really need a contested catch go-to. I'm going to get open. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to be a dog. I'm going to treat the ball like it's my ball, and I'm going to make a play. Basically what Restrepo gave you last year. Ideally, it's a bigger package, but I think you need another one, watching the way Carson Beck likes to play the game. Kick returner, I think you can see Jared Pringle playing that role. You got some young guys that can do that. I think Bryce Fitzgerald, once he gets here, and he's the only early enrollee, because he's at Columbus. They don't do that, so everybody else is early. But when Bryce Fitzgerald gets here in the summer, I think he's a great looking kick returner. He was probably the best kick returner in South Florida this year. Returned multiple to the house, so I can see him figuring there. Jared Pringle, I'd kind of lean there, a kick returner. And then linebacker, I think we need a big-time guy for sure. But let's see what we got. We just got a new defensive coordinator. He's going to want to see how these guys play in his system, and then we'll see what's available. Linebacker was thin portal-wise in this initial period, so we'll see if any name materializes there. But I think Miami wants to see what they got first and see how everybody looks in this system. Kyle saying a certain wide receiver playing Monday night would fit like a glove. Yeah, he'd fit like a glove in the games that we're going to watch today and tomorrow. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, you could put him in. I'm not sure the Ravens couldn't use Jeremiah Smith or the Bills, So, yeah, he'd definitely fit. A lot of questions on the coaching search. I usually stay off the coaching search just because they usually do it in silence. There's a lot of fake news with coaching searches. I've noticed that even with people that know what they're talking about. So I'm less inclined to get into that. I think, you want guys that are in harmony with what Heatherman is trying to do. Maybe guys that he has a relationship with in the past. Maybe guys just philosophically are aligned, because the worst thing you could have is an all-star coaching staff that's not on the same page. We saw that in 2022. You had, Jason Taylor, Coach Joe. At that time you didn't have Jason Taylor. But you had Coach Joe, Roderick Wright, both really good coaches, NFL interest. I think Roderick Wright's in the NFL right now. You had Charlie Strong coaching linebackers. He's pretty well renowned. You had Kevin Steele as your defensive coordinator, one of the most decorated defensive coordinators in college. You had a guy at cornerback coach who is now in the NFL with the same position with the Buffalo Bills. He's coaching this weekend. And you had a top pass rush that year. You didn't have great defensive talent, but you had a top 10 pass rush in terms of sacks. And you had 2 NFL corners, Tyreek Stevenson, DJ Ivey. They're both in the NFL. They both play on defense in the NFL. Tyreek starts. You had Cam Kitchens, who's playing this weekend, NFL starting safety, and then James Williams, who was starting towards the end of the year as a linebacker, but NFL player. And Corey Couch was a pretty good nickel. So top 10 in sacks, all that talent, and they were abysmal against the pass that year. They were in the hundreds because everybody was not on the same page. So you want guys on the same page. You don't necessarily want an all-star team of coaches. It's great if everybody's that kind of coach, but you want them all to be that kind of coach on the same page. Martin Dubé, live from Botswana, saying if Beck did not have drops, he would have had 4,000 yards up. Can't argue with that. I think there's stats to show that. Not to say he didn't have his mistakes, right? I watched the Alabama game. He had a lot of turnovers. He had some drops that could have been pick drops. But ultimately, when you watch, again, I implore everybody, if you want to really study Beck, go to YouTube, right? Georgia OL versus 2024, and you'll see all his games, offensive cut-ups, including the runs, and you'll see they had not, like, I can't think of, because Tate Ratledge was a really good center, right guard, for Georgia, but he was hurt. So he was playing hurt and not very effective. I mean, aside from maybe the center, and Zach Carpenter had a pretty good year, but let's say the center, I can't think of a single player on Georgia's offense that would play for Miami. I say that honestly. The running backs, I thought, were all mediocre. Their offensive line did not perform well, and their receivers stunk. Kobe Young was their top guy from day one. Their tight ends, who had a big part of the offense, were significantly worse than what Miami had last year. So on Beck, I think my final thought after really studying him is if he was on the 24 Canes, he wouldn't have been as good as 24 Ward, but he would have been a lot better than 24 Beck, and he would have been the best quarterback in the ACC. So that's kind of my thought. Appreciate you, Asanya. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this show. Remember to always hit up the Miami Hurricane Team Store if you need apparel. The Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHTS.com. They got all kinds of retail for Canes fans. This is the official retail provider of the Canes. So you spend money there. You're spending money on the program. This is all the pot that goes to players, that goes to coaches, that goes to facilities, all the same pot. This is directly affiliated with University of Miami, Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHTS.com, or you can go to the store across the street from the University of Miami next to that Thesis Hotel. 20% off your first item. Use promo code INSIGHT20 for Canes Insight, Insight20. You can just tell them if you're there in the store, say Canes Insight. They got a little button in the front. Boom. You get 20% off your first item. So, yeah, over 1,400 on talking Xavier Lucas, although we've really moved off that one quick because there's so much to get to. But, yeah, bottom line on Xavier Lucas, this is a NFL first-round pick type physical profile. He was the second highest graded player in Wisconsin's defense as a true freshman. Will he ultimately be that kind of player? We'll see. That's what development's for. That's why they play the games. But in terms of a physical profile, 6'2", 200, 10'5", 100 meter, you cannot get any better than what you have with Xavier Lucas. And it's going to be fun to watch in spring, a position that used to look just horrible, lacking in speed, lacking in length, lacking in athleticism, lacking in physicality, just totally overhauled with guys that have not only upside, but have experience and played snaps last year against big-time competition. So really, really excited for spring. We're going to be talking spring now. Miami's roster is complete for spring. So we know what we got. We're going to spring and see what we really got under Coach Heatherman and Coach Dawson. Extremely excited. We'll be here every single day on Canes Insight. Remember to like and subscribe to this show. Go Canes.